Fedora Productions. The Blob from 1958, one of the most classic horror films from the 1950s. A locally made film about teenagers and eventually a whole town fighting off an evil alien substance that consumes people whole and grows larger as it does. I love the original The Blob, although I hear a lot of people actually prefer the 1988 remake. Unlike a lot of horror remakes, this one was actually really good and well regarded, with some saying it even surpasses the original. Now, I personally haven't seen the 80s remake, but from what I know of it, I think it completes a trilogy of 80s remakes of 50s sci-fi horror films, first being The Thing, then The Fly, and then this. However, in between these two great movies, there was one that sort of slipped under the cracks. One that came out as a sequel to The Blob before the remake was ever even thought of. Beware the Blob, also known as Son of Blob and occasionally known as The Blob 2, came out in 1972 and was directed by Larry Hagman, whose only other directing credits before this went to I Dream of Jeannie and later on The Good Life in Dallas, because you know what those are. Not to mention that this was his only feature film credit ever. It was also produced by Anthony Harris, who I can't find a single picture of, but of which the film was the very first film he ever produced. He also wrote the film, but it's been reported that a good portion of his script was ignored and was purely improvised, which is pretty obvious at many points in the movie. For the film, they were given a budget of $150,000, which is either more or less than the original Blob, depending on the source, but you can definitely tell it has a low budget just from the look alone. The film begins in the grass, where we find this cat just screwing around with this ice cream truck music. We find this man, named Chester, who lives in his California home with his cat, his wife, and a container in the freezer containing the Blob. You see, at the end of the original Blob, the Blob was dropped off in the North Pole, so it couldn't cause any more trouble, because the Blob's weakness is the cold. For some reason, our obvious main character here, Chester, took it back home where, guess what? It thaws, eats a fly, escapes, eats the cat, then his wife, and then while he's watching the original Blob... Wait, what? Why is he watching the original film? That already breaks continuity! This has also been done in Silent Night, Deadly Night 2, showing its first movie in one scene, and the most convoluted being with Scream and Halloween H2O, where we see that a crowd of teens are watching Halloween and Scream, and then in the Halloween H2O, a couple of the characters are watching Scream 2, which means that if this was a marathon, they would have seen that they were watching the original Halloween. My brain, it hurts. So anyways, Chester sits on the Blob in his chair and starts to be consumed alive. So yeah, Chester, our good old buddy Opal, dies. So who could possibly be our protagonist now? Introducing Woman. Here we meet Lisa, played by Gwen Guilford, a TV actress prominent from the 70s and 80s. After passing by a Boy Scout troop, oh shoot, are those knockers? Lisa goes to Chester and,
Chester? Hey, who's in the store? What's wrong? Chester?
That right there is a horrible reaction to finding a dude being eaten alive by a giant bloody ball of bubble gum. Like seriously, you just see him and you ask, what's wrong? I know this has to do with the direction, not the actress, I think, but still, it had to say in the script somewhere he was being eaten alive right there, so I'm blaming both. Anyway, she gets scared and runs away. She drives all the way to get her boyfriend Bobby, played by Robert Walker Jr., a minor actor from the 60s and early 70s, and on the way there she hits some unimportant to the plot dude's car and knocks all his groceries out. When she gets to Bobby, he doesn't believe her, even when they go back to Chester's with the police.
He was sitting in the chair, and the thing came over him, and he was screaming, and he dissolved.
Dissolved? How do you know that? He was just covered with red slime and screaming. Many times throughout the film, we'll just find random characters doing random things, and guess who comes out and absorbs them up? A lot of times it's really lame, like, oh, here's this jerk police officer, and the Blob jumps over the camera, and then he screams. Oh, here's a bathing Russian man, and then his dog apparently dies. I say apparently because one shot he's there, and then the next shot, he's not. The best one of these is this dude who gets a $400 haircut, and I'm not joking about that price. Listen.
It'd be $400. Okay.
And then the blob pops out of the sink and eats them both. Probably for the best. That hairstylist was a douche.
Don't you get snotty with me again, young fellow.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean anything.
I'm a stylist. No, I'm more than that. I'm an artist.
Jesus Christ. There are several others that also die in pretty abundant numbers, but detailing all of them would get quite boring. But we do see Burgess Meredith as a homeless man 4 years before he did Rocky, so that's kind of neat. Anyways, back to the main characters, I guess. Lisa and Bobby drive for a bit, where Bobby won't shut up about sandwiches.
On whole wheat bread with alfalfa sprouts and Monterey Jack cheese.
Anyways, they go to this house, and hey, it's a party! We actually saw Lisa and a couple of her friends setting up this party earlier, where some excellent writing happens.
Oh, do we need anything else for the party?
Well, let's see now. No, just Bobby.
Yeah, oh, do you think it's gonna be hard to get him over here?
Oh, I don't think so.
Now I know why.
Hey, do you think you'll have any trouble getting Bobby here?
This is where I'm pretty positive most of the film was improvised. We got all sorts of random things happening, and then they eventually leave from this pointless scene. Now we get the scene that was shown in all of the advertisements for this film. Lisa and Bobby are in the car, and the Blob Attacks. It's not that bad of an effect, but it's pretty obvious how they did it. The scene is also where the characters find out the Blob's weakness. The cold.
Bobby, where are the horses?
The horses? What horses? By the way, that ADR effect was garbage. The lip syncing was barely existing. Anyways, Lisa and Bobby drive away and they run over that one dude who is still unimportant to the plot's beer. After that, we get a bunch of scenes of the Blob killing people, including this one where a woman just stands there. And another one is where some dude drifts his car into the Blob. Lisa and Bobby get to our final location at the bowling alley and skater rink, which is run by, oh hey, it's that guy! They ran over his booze! So our main couple try to convince the guy to shut down the bowling alley and skating rink, but he won't do it because of course he wouldn't believe them about the Blob, but also just because he doesn't like them. Oh, come on, man. She's not that bad. She's only nearly hit your car, run over your beer, knocked down the drinks off of one of your waitress's dishes. Actually, never mind. Lisa's an asshole. Anyways, you know what shows up, and it's ginormous. It's just filling the bowling alley, kills a few dudes, people evacuate the bowling alley, this cop grabs a can of something and looks at the camera smiling, and then our two main characters and the dude that rightfully dislikes Lisa are cornered into this compartment of the ice skating rink. Gee whiz, I sure wonder what's gonna happen now. As expected, they activate the rink's ice mechanism in a pretty neat stunt scene, and then the entire Blob freezes. The film ends with a TV station making a report on the Blob.
This is the most incredible thing that we have ever seen.
So did no one remember what happened in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania? And so, with a small part of it thawing and crawling on the reporter's foot, it just ends. Yep.
What?
Now, interestingly, there was supposed to be a sequel to this called Curse of the Blob, but the only thing that came out of it was the name. Though it is interesting to know that the cinematography was done by Dean Cundey, who wanted to do things like Back to the Future, Jurassic Park, and a crap ton of other things. And not only that, but one of the actors in this went on to actually be in Spaceballs. So that's something, but as you could probably tell, I didn't like this film at all. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen. It's not like super absolutely terrible, but it's not like extremely boring. It's just kind of in the middle of that, I guess. Now, if you're going to watch this, I'd only recommend watching this if you're just really, really curious and have seen the other two Blob films. Because watch those, or at least one of them, because this isn't good at all. It's not even like a so bad it's good kind of thing. Just like, it's just bad. And, that's all I really have to say about Beware the Blob, and if you're wondering about a certain masked killer character, I really couldn't keep caring about the continuity of this Halloween special sort of thing. I mean, it was just kind of a dumb idea that I got inspiration from another Halloween special from, so what's even the point? Just for the sake of it, Oh no! It's that mass killer guy! Luckily for me, I have this blanket that makes things disappear magically. Well, he's gone, and, yeah, I'm done with the video, so that's pretty anticlimactic, I'm very aware, but I have places to do and things to be, so, hope you liked the video. Share to people that are familiar with this film, and, Fuzzy Pickles.